So I don't even have a starting point, but has anyone heard of GenAI? Okay, we're good, we're good. Yeah, so experiments in low code and AI. What is this going to be about? It's kind of a bit all over the place. It's a kind of a work in progress because generative AI seems to be a work in progress. But I'm going to take you through what I've learned, experiments, etc. So yeah, we're just going to talk about a little bit about AI agents, which I see as like the ultimate in no code and low code. Experiments that I ran with that and how I reverted back to kind of a hybrid approach between low code and AI agents, and then some tips on low code stacks for the kind of stuff that you're doing, building MVPs or trying to build things out or workflows really quickly. Yeah, so a little bit about myself. As Rosemary said, Robert O'Shaughnessy. So I'm a product manager and a software developer. I've been doing this for about 20 years. And I'm a consultant now. And what I do is I help enterprise companies that are trying to figure out how do I fit generative AI and AI into my company to make my workflows faster. And then I also help startups who might have a SaaS product and they're trying to figure out, what am I going to do with Gen AI? How does it fit into my existing features? And should I even bother approaching it and using it? Will it be useful? I talk about all this stuff on YouTube. So if you're into this kind of topic, and it seems like you are, like and subscribe. So yeah, lots of different stuff around AI agents and Devon and every different kind of workflow you can kind of think of. So as a starting point, I am not a low code guru. I don't push it. I'm not an evangelist of this. I kind of see it like anything I do in software development. Know what a tool is, know what it can do, and know where it should fit into a particular workflow. So what is no code? I mean, there's no code, there's low code, there's different variations. People have different ways of thinking about this, but essentially it's a way to build a custom app. So you can think of anything like Gmail or Facebook or Instagram as technically no code. You're not writing code to achieve the result that you're trying to get. But no code seems to fall more into, I'm working in a specific business, I'm using Salesforce or I'm using some other tool. They don't do exactly what I want them to do. I'll have to pay a software developer to do this, to integrate them. Oh, I can use no code, which is like a drag and drop interface, which one API will talk to another API, and suddenly it all works. And I can do this myself, and that's empowering. So that seems to be what everybody agrees no code is. And here's some popular examples. There's like Airtable, Webflow, Bubble, Zapier. I think we've all kind of played with them at various different stages. So this is kind of like a broad landscape of different tools that are out there. I think we've all maybe tried to build a website at some stage. So you've used either WordPress or Webflow. Framer is another great example that's gained popularity in the last couple of years. But traditionally, when I started off building websites, my first job was working with RTE, and they were building the sports website for the first time. This is like 20 plus years ago. And I was teaching them what CSS was, this new tool that would like work on the web to like present web pages. It was brand new at the time. Everything was done from scratch. But now, of course, you can do it with no code, drag and drop interfaces. So the pros, well, it's accessible. So the idea is, building up skills as a software developer takes time. And some of us love it, and other people just don't like touching code at all. If you want to get a problem solved, you normally are used to have to go to a developer to do that. With no code, it's accessible. You can have somebody who's reasonably technical in your company or organization, pull a workflow together that will work, and you didn't have to bother the developer who might want to be working on some other different kind of features. So a lot more people in the company can use it, and that's better for everybody. It's fast to get started. Basically, you've got templates, you've got entire integrations and skeletons pulled together for you, so you can get up and running really fast. You don't have to spin up a server, start Postgres or an SQL database or anything like that. It's all in the cloud, so it's maintenance free. And this is the big thing that I like, because I'm a software developer. I can do all the other stuff that I just talked about. So why would I use it? But the integrations are what's key. So some of these mature no-code ecosystems have a ton of different integrations. They're all partnered. Every app talks to every other app via an API. And a lot of these benefits that you get with no code is you can actually drag and drop two things to speak to each other. I don't have to go and read all the API docs of a particular company to see if it'll work. Maybe the API is deprecated. I have to spend days figuring out why this call isn't happening. All that's kind of done for me. So that's a big advantage. So the not so good side of it is it gets you kind of 90% of the way there. If you've ever used like a no-code app builder, you'll see these demos and it looks fantastic and you're dragging and dropping in the interface. Oh, I'm going to build the next Uber with this. But then you get to a point where, oh, it doesn't fulfill this one thing that you need it to do. And that's where it gets complicated. That last 10%, you have to hire a developer. You're going to have to deconstruct how the rest of the app is created. And there's issues. But there's ways to get around that in a kind of a hybrid approach. And I'll talk about that in a second. Vendor lock-in, always a thing. Are they going to deprecate the integration or feature that you really need? Are they going to raise the pricing? You have to worry about these things. And generally, they're not that scalable. They're great for workflows inside your company that's maybe got 100 users or 1,000 users at most. Or if you're doing a startup and you're trying to prove out that a certain workflow or process is going to work for your customers, it's good up to about 1,000 users, and then it starts to kind of fall apart depending on the system. But if you've got 1,000 users on your MVP demo of your new product, that's a good problem. You're going to end up getting a developer to help you with it anyway. So how did I get into low code? Well, I've kind of messed with it at different stages for years, and then fell out of love and fell back in love again. But recently I got back into it again, messing with AI agents. So these are kind of like the ultimate in low code or no code that, I would think. This idea that you can create a natural language prompt into one of these tools and say, build me a website, or give me a marketing strategy for a new SaaS company, or generate all these articles. And when these came out first, the demos that you saw were really seriously impressive, to the point it was an existential crisis for a lot of developers, including myself. I was like, I've spent 20 years building up a core set of skills. Am I now redundant? Jensen Huang was saying that he thinks coding is going to become a thing of the past. And well, I think, yeah, he would say that because he's the CEO of NVIDIA, the people who are like selling all the processors that are going to be doing this. So he's kind of edging in that direction anyway. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of fear and uncertainty around them all coming out. So I really got stuck into it. I said, okay, if this is the next big thing, let's see how useful these tools are. And I've covered them all on my channel as well, if you want to step through each one of them. So I had one particular client. It was a recruitment company, and I wanted to see as a case study, could I use Crew AI, one of the agent tools, to carry out one of these processes that they were doing already. It was like find companies in a specific sector, get specific data, enrich it, clean it, summarize it, and post it to a website. So they'd have teams of people doing this normally. And I was like, can I use AI agents to do this? So how agents work, or no-code agents, you're basically just putting in a set of prompts and to set them up, and then they take over and they do all the rest for you. So find X companies is the task. You have a research agent does that, and then you have a tool like a web search. Then you save it to a database like Postgres, and then you've got all these different things in order to get it set up. And this is technically low code. I mean, this looks complicated, but it's just like a template file where you're giving it all the instructions and it takes off. And I've done this demo on YouTube as well. So the problem is, like, the demo is fantastic, and in certain cases it looks really good, and you get all this feedback to, oh my God, this is amazing. It actually went in that use case, found all the company information, filled it all out, put it into a CSV file, and it was actually really useful stuff. But when I dug into it, I was like, well, that's inconsistent, that's wrong. When I ran it the third time, it would pull in completely the wrong data. So it just showed there was a long way to go with generative AI, particular models, hallucinations, grounding, workflows, tools. And what I work in is practical AI. So it's like actually helping companies right now do things, as opposed to what the promise of an AI agent is going to do or low code is going to do in the future. And the other thing is I needed access to lots of different tools. Every company I spoke to said, oh, it needs to do Salesforce integrations, and it needs to do Marketo, and it needs to do all these over here. And you have to build those from scratch. And I've worked in integrations for like years. The actual software is easy, the integrations are the hard part. So that kind of got me thinking. And that's how I ended up back again with no code, because I was Googling all these integrations and it kept bringing me back to this one piece of software, which was called Make. So every integration I needed seemed to sit in this tool. It used to be called Integromat. So this is like, I would call this kind of no code, low code, in a sense that this is kind of like drag and drop coding. You can have Airtable, you can watch for records that are showing up, you can set all these little workflows, you can route it in different directions, publish things, connect to Google Sheets, connect all these different things. And I didn't have to write any code, I didn't have to spin it up, I didn't have to test APIs, didn't have to even open Postman at any point to get it all done. It has a data store, I didn't even have to use Postgres. And then the cool thing was, it's got all these little nodes that like have HTTP nodes. So if I felt like, oh, this node isn't working so well, or the way they've built it doesn't work for me, I could spin up my own little Express server and then carry out whatever thing I needed to get done, and then plug it back into the rest of the workflow. So I mentioned before, you don't want to get locked in. And the great thing about using a tool like this is you can deprecate any one of those nodes to use your own alternative approach as you grow. So I went back and I tried to do the same thing again, using all the no-code stuff to see if it was faster, and using ChatGPT. So this approach then was like my experiment in, can I do it the way it needs to be done, but do it in a production sense, so it's actually going to work the same time over and over and over? And can I save time by not having to code the whole thing from scratch? So instead of having the agent just randomly search the web and get it right some of the time, I used this tool called Appify, which has got all these scraper templates built for you. You just, it's like search LinkedIn, search Indeed, pull in all these jobs, search Zoom info, and pretty much plug and play, was able to pull all that stuff into Make at the start. And the next thing I wanted to do was store them. And I needed to store them somewhere, not in a database necessarily, but in Airtable, which is another great tool. And the cool thing about Airtable is I needed to have humans come in and verify that the content was right. But I didn't want to give them access to the whole database. I just wanted to give them a little interface where they could click yes or they could check. And I didn't want to build that from scratch. Airtable took care of that for me, and I was able to relationally relate all the data together. So another big time saving. And then where AI really shines is summarization, enrichment, different things like that. That's when I plugged in ChatGPT. Other models that I would use would be Olama. You can, that's a great tool actually to have Olama on your own desktop or on your local machine. You can download any open source model you want and run it there locally. And that's a big saving, because one thing I found about running AI agents is they're expensive. And if you can do it locally for some of the processes and some of the queries, saves you a lot of money. And Anthropic as well, highly recommended. And then the last thing then was actually uploading it to a website. And everybody talks about like Framer and Webflow as really cool tools. I'm old school, like WordPress. I mean, it's kind of janky, it's slow, but it does power half the websites in the world. There's a million different templates. I looked at, I was building a recruitment site for a company, and I looked at multiple different approaches to how I do this. I didn't want to use WordPress. I was like, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to use it again. I was able to create an entire recruitment website for like $69 or something like that off the Envato store. And I mean, you can't really beat that. And then you can get in and you can mess with all the PHP, and you can change everything after the fact the way you want to. And then it's headless, so that once it slows down and it starts getting slow, you can use your own front end in front of it and plug it in. So I wouldn't discount it. It's got a lot of plugins. So my stack, the summary of that is, AI agents, they're fantastic. I think they're going somewhere. I mean, using the LLM and the pseudo reasoning that's kind of plugged in is, there's cool things are going to happen, but we're not there yet. And if you want to do production, I recommend no code in a lot of senses, because it's very quick to get things up and running really quickly. and integrations are really key. So I'm still a developer. I develop all the time. Next.js, Neon, two things that I work with all the time. But I'm always quick to kind of go, do I want to build this just for the sake of building it, or is there something out there like no code or low code, it's just going to solve this problem for me really quick? And then I rely on the likes of Zapier. It allows things to plug together and integrate. Airtable is just great for a database. Make is the glue that brings it all together. Canva is fantastic for just a quick presentation or getting stuff out there. I mean, you're doing your demos later on and you're doing your presentations. If you're using it, it's fantastic for just looking really professional, really quickly. Notion for your brain and working with your team, everything in a wiki together that everyone can access. And then you'll be familiar with these guys down the bottom. So yeah, it's just about the right tool at the right time. I'm not saying no code is amazing, but it has its place. Have your upgrade strategy. How are you going to move? How is this going to grow after you pass your minimal viable product? And then be wary of what looks good online or yourself in terms of a demo of AI. It's like it'll show you really cool things once, but can it do it 50 times? And that's where it's key for enterprise usage and production. Yeah. Cool. That's it. That's amazing.